Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Now, today's first story is an HOA story with an update 3 years later. It's from Desert Nurse 760 and says HOA tried to tow my legally permitted vehicle twice in 1 day. I paid cash for a 2-bedroom condo in April. The condo came with 2 parking permits, one red, one green. The updated rules that were sent to me after closing states that an owner gets 2 parking permits, one for covered parking and one for uncovered parking. However, the rules do not state which permit is for which parking. Walking around the neighborhood revealed both green and red permits under covered parking, as well as about half of the vehicles showing no permit at all. 1 week ago, I received a notice on my windshield that my car would be towed for not showing the proper permit, even though the permit was clearly visible in the corner of the passenger side windshield. In fact, the notice was placed under the passenger wiper blade directly above the permit. I called the management company and informed them of their mistake, along with a picture of the permit in the corner of the windshield. I thought that this would solve the problem. I was wrong. I am a nurse and I work night shift. About 1 o'clock, my wife came in screaming that one of our cars was being towed. I immediately got up, got dressed and went outside to find an employee of the management company directing a tow truck to tow my car. She said that it was being towed because it had the wrong color permit. I immediately pulled up the rules and regulations on my phone and asked her to show me where the color codes were explained. She couldn't do that because that explanation doesn't exist in the rules. But she refused to stop the towing company, so I had no choice but to call the police. Upon arrival, I explained to the officers what was happening and showed them the rules and regulations on my phone, and both of my cars with the proper permits. They told the management employee and the tow company that they had no reason to tow my car. The rep hemmed and hawed that I was parked wrong, even if the rules didn't state so. The cop ordered the tow company to release my car. Problem solved, right? Wrong. I go back to bed and just fall asleep when my wife comes in screaming that they're towing the car again. I go back outside and the same cop is there from earlier. This time the president of the management company, the one who oversees HOA board meetings, is there along with the same tow truck driver and employee from before. This time my car is already up on the flatbed. The manager told police I still had the wrong permit to use covered parking, even though it was the right one according to this unwritten rule that I had learned of earlier in the day. The cop asked the manager if she had inspected the permit before calling for the car to be towed. She admitted that she hadn't and was just going off what the employee had told her from earlier. The cop asked her to verify that the permit was the right color to be under covered parking, and she hesitatingly admitted that it was. The cop was visibly perturbed and again ordered the tow truck to release the vehicle. He then gave a stern talking to the manager about making false claims and not verifying for herself what her employee told her. The cop gave me a case number and said that both reports would be available in 24 hours. I plan to use those reports to bring the attention of the HOA board, as I know for certain that the manager will try to sweep this under the rug, or will refuse to even acknowledge this incident. What should my next step be? Now, I don't know the legalities around these HOAs and what OP can actually do, and we always see, and I always feel like I have to mention that we're always generally seeing the worst of HOAs on these stories because that's why they post them. I always get emails after these stories, people telling me, no, I live in a good HOA, etc, etc. I get that. But the stories, whenever I read them, they always come across as like super power trippy. Like your bin's been left out for 1 day and you're getting a fine for it. Your grass length is too long. I always imagine them going along with a ruler measuring the grass length. No, that's not acceptable. £100 fine. Like a whole group of them walking down the middle of the street with a clipboard just marking everyone down, fining everyone. And I understand rules are there in place for a reason, etc. But why can't they just go knock on the door and say, just let you know, could you just please do this? Would you be able to just bring your bin in? Or whatever it is, just a friendly conversation. Surely these are your neighbors at the same time as well. You're going to have a good relationship with these people around you and not be some arsehole who's fining them every 2 seconds. I just find the power dynamics in these ones really weird. But Diresta says, notifying the HOA board in writing about these attempts to illegally tow your vehicle is the first step. Looks like you're already preparing for that. The rest depends on your state laws. You might even be able to file a small claim. But if I were you, I wouldn't do it yet, even if your state laws allows this. Typically, a towing authorization should be given in writing. Ask for a copy of this authorization from the management company. Make sure to let them know you're prepared to sue them if this happens again, if you're prepared to do that. I'm not a lawyer, just my opinion and how I'd address this if I were in your position. And I just realized my comment about knocking on your door might not be relevant in this situation because if it's a management company, they don't care. Does every HOA have a management company? I swear we've read stories in the past where it's just ran by neighbors. OP responded to that comment and said, the officer notified dispatch that my car was not to be towed. Apparently the tow company notifies the cops when they're going to tow a vehicle and they, presumably, give the license number to dispatch. So my local PD isn't going to play this stupid game again with the management/tow company. Whitey Dude says, I'd be out for blood, so to speak. I'd really press the board to fire this manager. The first attempted tow can be forgiven. The second, not so much. At this point she knew you were a resident, had appropriate tags and were just confused by the lack of system. Second attempted tow was malicious and an abuse of power. Desk Pilot says, I would take time-stamped photos of the permit clearly affixed. Send a letter to the towing company and the board certified mail return receipt with a copy of the CCRs. And then if the car disappears, report it stolen. At this point you can demonstrate intentional harassment. OP says already took the pictures and I'm preparing the letter as we speak. I think I can already show intentional harassment as my car was the only one targeted, even though there were other cars, literally 2 spaces away from mine, who had no parking permits visible. But OP came in with their update and says, as of today, here is what happened. And this is 3 years later and says, I've worked tirelessly these last 2 years to explain to as many homeowners what went on between me and the HOA. Most of them knew the basic details because they were aired during the monthly HOA meeting. Many HOA members sided with me. A few didn't, and a good chunk of them couldn't care less because it didn't affect them personally. That all changed last year with the onslaught of Hurricane Hillary. The storm did considerable damage to many of the roofs in the complex. The HOA board, led by the incompetent management company, dragged their feet when it came to performing the needed repairs. This really opened the eyes of many homeowners to the absolute incompetence of the board. Several owners stepped up and volunteered to run for the board, and in February of this year, the entire board was replaced in a landslide election. Their first item of business was to fire the management company that was responsible for trying to tow my cars, and was responsible for running up a $10,000 legal bill in the process. As for the parking permits, the new board has rescinded to the previous parking rules, and now there is no segregated parking. One pass for covered or uncovered parking. I guess I'm about as happy now as one could be living in an HOA. The new board is filled with sane adults with no vendettas, and seem to be taking their responsibilities seriously instead of targeting homeowners with malicious BS. Some people on the back of this one suggesting that the current board should chase up the old management company for money back, basically. I don't know. As I said, I don't know about the legalities of this one, but it seems to have been solved so far. Still in an HOA, but it seems a lot more saner these days. When OP mentioned Hurricane Hillary, I hadn't heard of that hurricane before. They seem to give them all names these days, don't they? So I get confused which is which. I thought to myself, bloody hell, who's Hurricane Hillary? But anyway, now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. Does have an update from beginning date 1924. He says, am I the arsehole for rejecting the worst name ever for our offspring? So my husband, 38 male, and I, 36 female, are expecting our first child, a bouncing baby girl due in a few months. We were both over the moon when we found out the gender, but now things have gotten complicated, to say the least. See, when we first started talking about names, the boy name was immediately decided Stuart Jr., after my husband. No problem there. It's a classic name and carries family meaning. But for a girl, things got murky. My husband suggested Stuarta? My husband suggested Stuarta. No, you're not having a stroke. Apparently his logic is that since Stuart ends in T, we can just add an A to make it feminine. I tried explaining why that doesn't work, how it sounds more like a furniture brand than a human name, how she'd be endlessly correcting people and explaining its origin. He's adamant though, says it honors him while giving our daughter a unique name. I've suggested alternatives, feminine names that maybe share a similar sound or meaning to Stuart, names he mentioned liking in the past, even just going back to the drawing board entirely, but he's fixed on Stuarter. Now, I love my husband dearly, and I understand wanting to honor family, but I can't imagine subjecting our daughter to a lifetime of awkward stares and endless questions about her unusual name. I also worry about potential bullying and the impact it could have on her self-esteem. So Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to budge on Stuarter? Is there any compromise I haven't considered? Help a soon-to-be mama out. Looking forward to your thoughts and hopefully some sanity checks. Edit, please no suggestions for other names. The man clearly has a theme, and I need to gently steer him away from it, not fuel the fire. Polly the Pony says, not the arsehole, naming a child as a 2 yes and 1 no situation means you need 2 times yes for a name to be it, and 1 no to make sure that name is not the name you choose. Works both ways if you'd ask me. Also, I'm not a fan of naming the first name of a child after a parent, because then the child will always be compared to their parents and need to fight harder to be their own person. Have less problems with a middle name being connected to someone else, parents, grandparents, because that is only a formal name and not used in everyday business. Why is he dead set on Stuarter? I mean, there are so many beautiful names, but he only wants to name his daughter after him. Why not after the mother, like your name, Junior? It's a bit misogynistic to only want to name the baby after the father. Whose last name will the baby get? His as well? Maybe you could find a way, like name the baby with the first letter as your husband, Stella, Sally, San, etc. Make sure the baby has a middle name, if she shares the same last name as her father, because it would be annoying for simple things like mail and stuff. Jell says to piggyback on this, what's his middle name? Could there be a feminine version of that, less objectionable / actually a name, rather than just a weird mishmash of sounds? Princess Ferocia says not the arsehole, telling me he only gets 1 kid named after him, so if he goes with Stuarter now, he'll never get a Stuart Jr. And how come it's so important that he be honoured but not you? See how he feels about naming a future son a male version of your name. Remind him that baby names need a yes from both parents or it's a no. You both need to be able to live with whatever you go with, even if that means both of you missing out on the one you want most. And Tempting Penguin says not the arsehole, Stuarter sounds like a pharmaceutical product. I can hear the commercials now. In some cases, Stuarter can cause headaches, rashes, and even death. It doesn't have a decent nickname, and though adding a doesn't make it feminine in all cases, and this is one of them. I'd go for Stuart as a middle name. I find it so bizarre the insistence on this name, like not even considering how the child will feel growing up. They're not an object or a pet or anything. They gotta grow up with this name. They gotta live with this name. The child is the one that has to live with this name, and to not take that into consideration at all is just bizarre to me. But OP comes in with an update and says, first, the good news. We have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. She weighed in at 7 pounds 4 ounces and already has the most incredible head of dark hair. Seriously, where did that come from? Labor was a marathon, not a sprint. 18 hours of fun. But the amazing nurses kept me fueled on ice chips and cheesy encouragement. Now for the not so good news. The name situation. Oh no, buckle up, because this might take a minute. Right before pushing started, things got a little heated between me and Stuart. Apparently the stress of contractions made him even more attached to Stuarter. He was pacing the room, muttering about family legacy, while I was doing some very impressive Lamaze breathing exercises. Suddenly, my water broke with a rather impressive pop. Let's just say it startled everyone in the room, including Stuart. The nurse, bless her heart, took advantage of the distraction and very calmly started prepping for delivery. Everything after that was a blur of pushing, encouraging words and the most amazing head of dark hair emerging into the world. The second our daughter was out, screaming her little lungs out, a wave of pure, primal love washed over me. It was in that moment, staring at this tiny, perfect human being, that the name debate completely evaporated. There was no way I could call this beautiful little girl Stuarter. So What did we end up with? In the haze of postpartum bliss, I blurted out the first name that popped into my head. The name of the incredible nurse who coached me through labor. Ella. Yes, Ella. Not exactly the most adventurous choice, but in that moment, it felt perfect. Strong, steady, kind. Just like the woman who helped bring our daughter into the world. Stuart, bless his confused heart, just looked at me, then at our daughter, then back at me again. Finally, he let out a shaky laugh and said, Ella it is. Thanks for all the support and hilarious Stuart comparisons. Here's to sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the incredible journey of parenthood. Couple of comments after that one. So Exciting Cattle says, I'm so happy you guys could agree on a name. Ella is a really good and classic name. Well wishes to you and your baby. Bated Breath replies saying, I like Ella too, but I'm surprised OP's husband didn't counter with Stuart Ella. Jules Watt replies saying, then he'd be a Nutella. Professional Ruin says, a sensible counter would be Stella, but the paperwork is done. Too late. And I'm glad that, it came to a compromise and Ella was chosen and they move on. But was anyone else, maybe it's just me in this, was anyone else weirded out when it got to the bit where it says he was pacing the room muttering about family legacy? I mean, what the fuck? I'm really curious to know what this legacy is that he's muttering about it. I want to know what the exact words were. But holy moly, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's have one more story. Now this one is from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. It doesn't have an update as yet, but I saw neighbor in the title and I was like, you know me. It's from Throwaway Flat Issues who says, Am I the arsehole for refusing to help rekindle my girlfriend's friendship with our neighbor after she refused to help her in an emergency? My 25 female girlfriend, 26 female, Lotta, has always been on the more quiet and reserved side, but also incredibly kind and conscientious of other people. She also doesn't let others walk over her, and knows how to set and stick to boundaries, which is one of the reasons I was attracted to her. But a few weeks ago, I think she was too ruthless. A few weeks ago, our upstairs neighbor, who Lotta and I are close with, showed up at our door, sobbing and begging Lotta to babysit her 5-year-old for an hour because her 1-month-old was having trouble breathing, and had stopped breathing at one point and needed to go to the hospital ASAP. The neighbor explained her mother was on the way as they speak, but she has no one else to take care of her other son. She offered to pay Lotta. I was at work at the time. Lotta said no. She said she was busy and couldn't do it. The neighbor ended up taking both kids to the hospital. I found out about this incident when I got home from work, and Lotta told me. I was genuinely surprised to hear she said no, which seemed to annoy Lotta. It's been 3 weeks since that event, and our neighbor has been quite cold to Lotta, and this really bothers her. She says she was just setting boundaries and that our neighbor was entitled and snobby for being upset that Lotta said no. I explained I felt differently, and I'm more on our neighbor's side as 1, she's never asked us for any favors in the 3 years we've known her, and 2, this was a medical emergency, not her wanting to go clubbing with her friends. I told Lotta that she didn't teach our neighbor a lesson, she only added stress she didn't need. This really upset Lotta because she thought I would be on her side. She then asked me to talk to our neighbor to try and rekindle their friendship. I said I can't do that for her. She needs to apologize herself and put in the work. Lotta stormed off and now keeps saying I'm being a huge arsehole for not siding with her and helping her with our neighbor who is her friend. Am I the arsehole? Edit, Lotta was busy cooking dinner and catching up on a show of hers. She wasn't working or doing anything that would be dangerous for kids to be around. Nah, not the arsehole for trying to rekindle that relationship. As you said, she needs to go and talk to her and try and build whatever she can out of this. I wouldn't expect too much though if I was you. This sounds like a good neighbor, like you said, who hasn't asked for any favors in 3 years, even a friend, you said in this post. And that's how she treats her friends. A medical emergency. She came up to you and told you that her child was having trouble breathing and can you just look after the child for an hour while her mum turns up? I mean, come on now, and you turned her away. That's mad. But Lynn says not the arsehole, and then quotes that it was a medical emergency and says, that's it right there. This is so horrible to do to someone. Because Lotta was busy, that poor 5-year-old was exposed to further trauma by having to go to the hospital and potentially witness their baby sibling being poked and prodded and probably have tubes shoved down their throat. I really hope Lotta doesn't want children of her own. Or maybe I do, because then she will realise what a total arsehole she was to this poor woman. And I have to question, what does this mean for OP's relationship? Would you consider it looking at this in a different way? If, like hypothetical situation, my partner treated a neighbour that way, someone that they considered a friend, and treated him like that, I would certainly be side-eyeing things after that. B. Jackson says, not the arsehole, good for you for recognising that it wasn't your job to mend the fences that Lotta broke. She might be good and kind in most instances, but in this case, she doesn't know how to admit that she was wrong and apologise to the right person. Sounds like she's mad at everyone but herself. I'm also on the neighbour's side. This was a small test of friendship for Lotta, and she failed it. She didn't want to be inconvenienced, which is fine. But now your neighbour doesn't want to be inconvenienced by befriending Lotta. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. Maybe you got a different opinion on the matter. If you was Lotta, would you ever be able to become friends with someone like that again? That's mad. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.